Welcome. This is our Algebra 2 Transformation of Functions, Lesson number 2, Shifting Functions Home Review, Part 1. If you find these videos helpful, please give a like and leave any questions or comments in the comment section below. Number 1. Which of the following equations would represent the graph of parabola y equals 3x squared minus 4x minus 1 after a reflection in the x-axis? Well, one of the things we learned in class before is that if we're going to reflect any function in the x-axis, what we can do is multiply the function by -1. So if y equals f of x, then y equals negative f of x is f of x reflected in the x-axis. If we multiply the function by -1, we get the original function reflected in the x-axis. Now, if we want to reflect the y-axis, we have y equals f of negative x. So y equals f of negative x is f of x reflected in the y-axis. Meaning, if we replace each value of x with negative x in the original function, which we should not and with, sorry about that, x in the original function, we get the original function reflected in the y-axis. So to reflect in the x-axis, multiply the whole thing by -1. To reflect in the y-axis, replace x with negative x and then simplify. So let's take a look at our question number 1. Reflecting the x-axis, we're going to take our function and multiply by -1. So 3x squared minus 4x minus 1 multiplied by -1 means we're going to get negative 3x squared plus 4x plus 1. And that would be choice 4. Number 2, the graph of y equals 10 minus x squared represents the graph of y equals x squared after, and so we take a look at this here. So now which one is it going to be? We want to rewrite this in this form. So before we determine which one it will be, I'm going to rewrite the y equals 10 minus x squared as y equals negative x squared plus 10. Now, it definitely looks like there's going to be a shift upwards. Shift up by 10. And because we have a negative x squared, it looks like it's going to be, in this case, reflect in x-axis. The question is going to be, which one do we do first? So one of the things I would recommend we do is that we are going to kind of follow along the lines of our order operations. So notice in this case, the multiplication of x squared by -1 comes first, and then we would then do addition. All right? So so in this case, it's definitely not going to. It looks like in this case that because all of them kind of look similar, except for number 3, because 3 says a leftward shift of 10 units followed by reflection of y-axis. Right? That I don't think is going to be the case. So definitely not 3. Okay? And we're not shifting rightwards, so because it's going to be up or down, so definitely not 4. So now the question is a vertical shift upwards by 10 units followed by a reflection of the x-axis, or is it going to be a reflection of the x-axis followed by a vertical shift of 10 units upwards? Okay, well, what happens is that if I would sketch this graph here, all right, so here's y equals x squared. And the graph of 10 minus x squared is going to look like this. It would look like the following. All right, so now which one would give us the correct answer? Well, if I took the purple graph and then and first vertical shift up by 10 units, then it'd be up here, and then reflect over the x-axis, then it'd be down here. So this would be step 1, and that's step 2. which the y, the y picture doesn't look like the what we have top. Well, for 2, a reflection of the x-axis would mean first we have this. We have our graph going this way, and then shift it upwards. That's step 1, and then shift upwards by 10. That's step 2. So it'll look like, in this case, choice 2 is the correct answer. And rule of thumb, right, I want to rewrite this in kind of look like the original function y equals x squared. And then see, in this case, okay, I'm going to follow along lines what's being done, and according to order of operations, which one goes first? Am I going to multiply before I add, or add before I multiply? And of course, it's a multiply before I add, which would mean you reflect, here we see a reflection in the x-axis before we shift upwards. So the answer number 2 is 2. And you could, in this case, take a look here and kind of see the comparison between the two graphs now, all right, on your graphing calculator. Number 3, excuse me, if f of x equals negative 2x squared plus 5x minus 3, and g of x is a reflection of f of x across the y-axis, then the equation of g is which of the following? Well, we talk about how the reflection of f of x across the y-axis is replacing all the x's with negative x, and then simplifying. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do f of negative x is equal to neg 2 times neg x squared plus 5 times negative x minus 3. Now, if you're going to square negative x, so negative x times negative x is positive x squared, then minus 2 gives us negative 2x squared. Okay, already getting rid of choice 3 and choice 4. And then we have a minus 5x, because positive 5 times negative x is negative 5x, and then minus 3. And so the only one that in this case matches is going to be choice 1. Okay. Question number 4. If the point negative 3 comma negative 5 lies on the graph of the function h of x, then which of the following points must lie in the function h of negative x? Well, negative h of x. So when we go from h of x to negative h of x, meaning when you multiply the function by negative 1, we are reflecting in the x-axis. So if you remember, that kind of transformation, xy, when we reflect in the x-axis, becomes x comma negative y. Okay? This is from geometry a while back. Algebra 1, we did that result 2. I did that as well. And so if we're going to follow the same pattern, we have negative 3 comma negative 5 becomes, we keep x the same, and change the sign of the y value, which becomes now positive 5. So it looks like in this case, the point negative 3 comma negative 5 is h of x, then negative h of x must have the coordinate of negative 3 comma positive 5 as a kind of matching value, and that'll be choice 2. Question 5. If the function y equals negative f of x minus 4 were graphed, it would represent which of the following transformations of the graph y equals f of x? So let's take a look here. It looks like we have inside a shift right. Shift right by 4. And then we also have, in this case, this minus 1 on the outside, which means reflect in x-axis. But again, which one goes first? Well, we follow our rules for order operations. And so we might say, well, we multiply first by negative 1, and then we add it or subtract it. Except there's something else in order operations we have called parenthesis. We must do the work in parenthesis first. And so we see x minus 4 is in the parenthesis first. And so any work done in parenthesis must be to go first. So the very first thing to do is we'll shift it to the right by 4. That's step 1. Because that's the work in parenthesis. Work outside parenthesis is not the same thing. And instructing outside parenthesis would be probably one of the last things we do. But work inside parenthesis is that we'll do first. And then after we shift to right by 4, we go to reflect, step 2, reflect in the x-axis. And so no, it was definitely not a downward shift and definitely not a leftward shift. Okay, so we see in this case it's a rightward shift of 4 units. All right, so both 1 and 2 have that, and then there's a reflection in the x-axis because we're multiplying -1. Therefore, the correct answer for this one is going to be choice 1. All right. Okay, everybody. All right, so this is going to be the end of our Algebra 2 transformation of functions, lesson number 2, shifting functions, homework review, part 1. All right, and if you have any questions, please leave your questions and comments in the comment section below. And again, the key things to keep in mind is going to be when you multiply by -1, you're reflecting the x-axis. Replacing each x with negative x will be a reflection of the y-axis. And to figure out which operations done first, follow the order operations. All right, the PEMDAS null. Here we saw an example of the parenthesis part being done first before any type of multiplication division. Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching, and look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care, everybody, and be safe.